Hello, this is Ben Paris, Vice President of Operations for the Seminole County Chamber. You are about to hear Good Morning Seminole, our monthly signature event.
Please join me in welcoming our moderator for today's program, CEO and Chief Strategy Officer for Evok Advertising, Larry Meador.
Good morning, everyone. I have a microphone. You'll listen to everything I say now. Thanks for having me. I do appreciate it. Thanks to the Chamber for inviting me. Thanks, Alan, for inviting me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to hosting a good panel. My name is Larry Meador. I'm founder and CEO of Evok Advertising. I get the pleasure of interviewing these panelists. Like our panel today, our agency specializes in one of our specialties is restaurant marketing. Ariana and Terry are back there somewhere working on the team. Yep. And so our team recently published some key findings on the future of the food service industry, and Ariana brought a report. We have coffee talk, and we'll go through that report with anyone who's just doesn't get enough of this. If you want to hear more about the future of the restaurant industry, we'll be happy to sit down with you. So now if we could just get our panelists. Keri Byrd with CFRLA. Yes, please. Patrice Phillips with Something Fishy. Christina Hollerbach with Hollerbach Willow Tree Cafe. And Stephen Hepsworth with Boston Coffeehouse Altamont. I'm expecting lots of gift cards. If we could just go down the row and you could, a brief introduction for yourself, please. Start here with Keri.
Well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm Keri Byrd from the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. I represent Central Florida, so that would be Osceola, Orange, and Seminole counties. I am a native-ish of Seminole County, so I'm excited to be here with you guys today. And what else do I need to... I'll just quickly say that FRLA is a statewide association that advocates for restaurants and hotels, and then anybody who is a service provider for that industry as well.
And you do fun events.
Pardon?
You do fun events.
I do really fun events.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrice Phillips, and I actually own two restaurants. They're both called Something Fishy. One is located in Apopka. That's been there for 6 years. Our second restaurant is Something Fishy in Altamont Springs, and we just made our 1-year anniversary.
Hello, I'm Christina Hollerbach, and I'm CEO of Hollerbach's German Restaurant, our delicatessen, and our clothing store. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year, and we've got lots of great things in the work and special events, and hospitality is literally in my blood. I don't know anything else, so when offered the chance to be on this panel, I'm like, yes, this is all the things I love to talk about all the time, so I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Stephen Hepsworth. I'm the owner of Boston Coffeehouse in Altamont Springs. Thank you very much. So, if you have coffee complaints today, go see Karen or someone else. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking completely. Love you, Karen. No, you can come see me. But happy to sponsor the meeting and Ultimate Council meeting and everything, and love being part of the council and part of the chamber in general. So you guys have been awesome for me for the 4 years I've been open. So happy to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you to our panelists.
That's because you're right here.
So we'll start at the beginning, right? That's where everything starts, right? So if I could, Christine, Stephen, Patrice, either of you that want to answer, all three if you want, can you just talk to us and share with us why you decided to open a restaurant and do the business that you do?
I can start, yeah. I took a very weird path of getting to open a restaurant. I was actually a mechanical engineer for 8 years and worked on missile designs. So I got tired of designing missiles for some reason and decided to open up a restaurant. I was doing a lot of traveling away from home, and it just kind of, hotels not near anywhere, doing testing on engines and everything. It just kind of got old being away from home, so I figured let me be my own boss, open up my own restaurant. It's been one heck of a ride, I will say, for 4 years. It's been challenging and rewarding all at the same time, and it's definitely something that I've enjoyed. It's every day is a new day, I will say. So, people ask me, am I glad I made the change? And It depends on the day. Sometimes definitely yes. Sometimes I don't know what in the world I was thinking, but for the most part, it's just something that I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted my own challenge, and I kind of fell into it, and I'm happy that I did it. So that's a long story short. So thank you.
I know, it's like, okay, how do I condense 20 years into a couple seconds? My parents always wanted their own restaurant. They also worked in hospitality growing up, and it was one of those right thing at the right time kind of things. And we actually bought Hollerbach as a lease-to-own business for $60,000 in 2001, and we slowly grew. So we started with 7 employees, and we were hoping to make $700 a day to break even. Right now, I have over 160 employees, and we see about 7,000 people a week. So it's gone. It gives me goosebumps when I think about it. But it's been a long way. But like I said, because I grew up with that mindset and that love of hospitality from my parents, even like when we would go to like theme parks at Disney, I call my dad a hospitality cyborg, because like he's enjoying himself, but he's also like analyzing the room of like, all right, how many tourists are here, how many, whatever it is. And so I grew up kind of with that training. So the idea of doing anything else is just weird to me. But even a new member is the Ritz Theater, which I also get to do. So I'd say my 2 big loves are hospitality and theater, but they kind of go hand in hand, because you're always on stage when you're in hospitality. So, but they really wanted their own German restaurant, and lucky enough that those things aligned and that we could do that and provide that great experience. But I can't imagine anything else. And like you said, there's some days where you're like, why or how? There's never a week where something doesn't break. There's never a week where someone's not in crisis. But I thrive on that energy, and I really enjoy the industry. So.
Well, actually, I didn't want to open a restaurant. This was my husband's dream. He actually did all the cooking. We've been married for 28 years. And as our children started to get older, and he worked in telecommunications. And I just said, if you want to open a restaurant, you should do it now while we are still young enough to participate and get it going. And we just took the leap of faith. And he left, he worked at the Orlando airport, and he left the airport. And my original goal was to stay out of the restaurant. But of course, being the mom, being the wife, I saw some areas where I could be of help. And so I volunteered and joined. And now it is our 4th baby, because we have 3 children, and I love it. I love the customers, I love the experience, and when I don't love it, I hate it, but it's wonderful.
Just like my children.
This podcast is sponsored and produced by AVL Essentials, your essential audio-visual production company. From podcasting to live event production, we have you covered. Please visit avlessentials.com to learn more about us.
Keri, so you don't have a restaurant, but you've seen a lot open. Can you talk to us just a little bit more about what FRLA does and your role and how you support the industry?
Yeah, so like my panelists here, I do have a little bit of a background in restaurant. When I was in college and high school, and I needed a little extra spending money because my dad wouldn't let me have a car without a job, I worked in restaurants. And when I came home for summer vacations, I worked in restaurants. And when we went through that first terrible, in my timeline anyway, economic crisis, I left my corporate job and went back to work in the restaurant business, because it was always the business that was always there. You always need restaurants. People celebrate there. People do everything at restaurants, and I love food. So the restaurant business is in my blood too a little bit. So I also have an association background. Most of my career has been working for nonprofits. So when this position came up, and I thought, gosh, this was in 2019, I thought, what a great way to impact the industry and be in hospitality. I love people most of the time. It's a little bit of a dichotomy depending on the day, like you said. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, which just changed it, just made my job even more complex. But what we do for the state of Florida is we provide the biggest thing we do is advocating for restaurants. We did a lot to help restaurants get funding to stay in business over the last 2 years. We do a lot of training and certifications for hotels and restaurants. We provide education that is far above what any other association provides for the hospitality industry. And then we have a lot of fun events. There's nothing better than putting on events for the hospitality industry. But what we truly do is just whatever services a restaurant or a hotel needs, we're there to provide that for them. And we have over 11,000 members in the state of Florida. Those are corporate members, and Hollerbach is one of our members. Something Fishy is about to become a member. But whatever we can do to help support hospitality is what we do. I have an application on the table. That's the short answer.
Awesome, thanks. So we were just talking at our table, and I'm moving on to the kind of the state of the industry today and the kind of the big picture. And I guess combining a couple questions here, have restaurants rebounded from the closures associated with COVID shutdowns at the beginning of the pandemic? Are we back?
That's a great question too, and I'm sure they can help answer this. But what we've definitely seen is during the pandemic, our restaurants learned to pivot, right? We started doing a lot more takeout, curbside, third-party delivery services, which is not always a good thing. I hope there's no third-party delivery services in here. One of the things that FRLA did was we advocated for alcohol to go. You're welcome, so you can pull up to Hollerbach's and get your drinks to go. Drop the mic, I'm out. But I don't think we did see restaurants close. We have seen hardships. And I think on the other side of the pandemic, what we're seeing with a lot of our members is they're struggling with the new stuff, the supply chain issues, the increased wages, just the ability to pay the rent. Like a lot of our restaurants are seeing increased rental prices, increased electrical bills. Like everything has increased what they're trying to do. And what I have noticed, which is interesting, is the consumers don't actually mind paying more for your products and services, but it's just becoming more of a hardship. We are estimating, the NRA has estimated that we're gonna lose about 35% of our restaurants nationwide, and that's a scary number. But those who did learn to pivot and did learn to be creative and really just hunker down are doing really well, I think. We've had a lot of people say that the numbers they're doing now are better than the 2019 numbers, but again, the overhead is a little bit higher than it used to be.
So the three panelists, yes, as the three panelists kind of give us some impact on your opinion on where we are. If you could also touch base on like really two key issues that I think is really important for you guys is pricing, supply chain, and also staffing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you talk about that?
Sure. Okay. I have to agree. As long as we can adapt, we can survive. But my husband is a numbers guy. So you have to really know your numbers. You have to know what everything costs down to the napkin. And by doing that, you're really able to kind of stay ahead of the curve. The problem that we're having is that we can't figure out what is going to happen. We can't find any trends. We can't go by last year, and we definitely can't go by the year before. So we're literally starting all over again. So that's the challenge. We try to cut corners, but at the same time, we have to raise prices for wages. And, so it's a constant balancing act for us. So we are coming back. We're starting to see more people in our restaurants, and we're starting to have great numbers. But at the same time, we're getting squeezed, just as you said. On the other end, we're finding that all of our expenses are higher, that we can't get certain products. And I will tell you, sometimes customers don't understand that we can't just run out to the grocery store and fill our shelves. So if we say we're out of something, and it may seem very simple, we really are out of it because we just can't go to Publix. But, customers don't always understand that, and then we get blowback for that. Right. So that's the issue. So we've always had a motto from the very beginning that we sell out, we don't throw out. And we just don't carry everything that you might be used to at a restaurant. And that's where we have to cut corners.
That supply chain issue, and I waited tables a long time ago. Does the FRLA get involved with helping restaurants with supply chain? I mean, it's great that we can go get a margarita to go, but I remember being at restaurants and running out of something and saying, well, go to Publix. And the owners are saying, that's illegal. We can't do that. We cannot go buy retail and then put it into the store and cook with it. Is the FRLA looking at things like that? Have you heard pushback like that to try to help alleviate with supply chain? Sorry to put you on the spot. You weren't prepped for this.
As somebody who was in the restaurant business, we did sometimes.
We
run
did
to
it all the
Publix.
time too, yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Maybe a line here or there.
If you need lettuce or tomatoes, you run to Publix. But yeah, so we have a branch of FRLA that falls under us. It's called RCS. And the leader of RCS, that's our education and training department, certifications. They do the safe serve handling, food handling, all that stuff. The head of that department was formerly the head of the DBPR, which is the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. So we monitor very closely what people are doing, and we ask if they ask for our help. We are absolutely happy to step in and say, here's what you can and can't do. Here's what we can provide for you. But I can tell you that FRLA advocates. Our headquarters is in Tallahassee for a reason. We're literally across the street from the state capitol, and we are there every single day advocating for whatever happens to be on the table that day. But yeah, we absolutely help our restaurants to understand, and our hotels too, because there are big F&B components to hotels as well. But we do whatever we can to help them. We go to Patrice and say, okay, here's what you can do, here's what you may not want to do, here are some guidelines that we know that work, and if you need help with that, we can help you do that. Anything you can imagine in a restaurant situation, we can help with.
Christine, you have a lot of employees. I always get great service there. Yeah. So how do you keep great staff, and especially how do you find and keep them today?
Sure. And even if you said, what is the state of hospitality? And I said it's a whole new world. Even with 20 years of data, it means nothing anymore. So, trying to figure out PARs and prep is really difficult. And I think that the most important thing about staffing is creating a culture. And like I said, 20 years, I've always had a stack of applicants sitting in the back office, and if somebody, didn't show up, hey, you were in your 30 days, you're gone, I'll just grab the next one on the pile and I'm fine. It's the first time in 20 years where it is a struggle to find staff. And it's, I think, just such a competitive work environment, and it's not always about money. Even though we can be competitive about, paying well and providing benefits, it's not always about that finance anymore. So who cares if you pay me well? I don't want to be overworked. I only want to work these hours. I want to have this work-life balance. So it's a completely different employee that's not necessarily always motivated by financials. So it's a real change. And besides wanting to be competitive with benefits and pay, it's making an environment that people want to come to work, where they feel valued, where they feel like their work means something. So we make a big effort all the time about, it's F&B, but like you said, this is a place where people celebrate, where they do things. Like, you have the ability to have instant gratification about whether or not you're doing a good job. Like, I got a friend who works at EA Games. He worked on a project for 2 years, and then they finally pitched it, and they go, we don't like it. And I just can't imagine working on something for 2 years and it just never seeing the light of day. And that's normal for them. But for us, I need to know right now, did my sales pitch work? Did this table have a good time? Did I make this person's birthday special? I love that energy. So we always try and remind people that, the actual job we do, anybody can learn. The skill of being a server, the skill of being a cook. It's the desire to want to be there and to make people happy and feel value from that. That's hard to teach, but something that we strive for all the time. So creating that culture, giving these employee benefits, and like I said, someone's always in crisis. And unfortunately, too, in the hospitality industry, there's a lot of people that are living paycheck to paycheck. So it's always a financial crisis, And so even though we pay well, it's just one of those things, it's just a lifestyle that kind of gets attracted to the hospitality industry. So that's something we have to face all the time, that they're not just your employee. There's always something going on outside of their life. How can we help these people, make themselves better so that they are good employees, but also so that they have a good work-life balance. So culture, all the way there.
Stephen, how's supply chain? I mean, coffee, right? So how does supply chain impacting you guys right now, and how's it affecting overall pricing? Are consumers raising an eyebrow or expecting to pay a little bit more?
That's a great question. Yes and yes. Some do raise the eyebrow. Some are happy paying more for coffee. It depends, but prices definitely, unfortunately, had gone up because multiple products that I'll buy. Some are 25% up, some are 50% up, a couple are 100% up. It's just the new reality of the situation. And then the supply chain, it's going from one vendor to now I have to search between 5 different vendors to find the same amount of products. It's so much more time on my end, and then they still might be out of it. So it is totally different. It's very difficult to find the same products that I could 2 years ago and just easily order. So it's more expensive and more time consuming on my end. It's kind of a bad combination, but it's something that I'm just, you have to deal with. You need that product, and you need to try to make the customer as happy as possible. I hate saying we're out of things, but occasionally that is the reality of the situation. And customers generally are understanding, but occasionally they're not as well. But trying to keep as much product and trying to get creative with product too, and new recipes or anything like that, just because you might not be able to get the product that you need. Come down to paper goods. I mean, I couldn't get straws for 2 months, and that's not a great thing. So I had to stock up as soon as I found them. But customers don't really understand that portion of it. But and then paper companies, I can't even find a toothpick frill anymore. They don't make them. So paper companies are not making as many products anymore. So
I bought toothpicks on eBay. That's like a real thing.
Yeah, it's just things that a lot of houses are just condensing what they're making. So now your order guide that you may have had 2 years ago, that's out the window. You could have ordered 50 products from one company, now they only make 5. So you got to get creative with what you're doing, and try to adapt as much as you can for the new supply chain. That's how I can say that.
And Stephen, to that, being creative, I mean, you're running a local, locally owned, original concept kind of thing, local versus another big giant coffee shop that we won't mention. Although I did go through the drive-thru with a big giant coffee shop, and they were looking for staff, and I thought it was unique that on their billboard they had a little small board. They had their benefits of working there, and it was 401k, PTO stuff, all the stuff. But their number one benefit was a free Spotify account. Like, they know who they're hiring, right? So how do you, Stephen, compete with maybe more nationally known or recognized brands, and how do you pivot and stay creative to get foot traffic?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Employees it's always a challenge. The number of times recently that I've had sit-down interviews with people and they say, well, I'll come in, I can start around noon. And I said, well, we're a coffee place. We open, a little earlier than that. And I said, is there any way you come in earlier? And they said, no, I sleep in. I'm glad you sleep in, but this just unfortunately is not the job for you then. And they look at me like not understanding. I'm like, well, we open at 6. You need to be here around that time. Like maybe 7 at the latest I can have you start, but not noon. Well, what time do you close? Like, well, right now we're at 3:30. And like, well, I could work later. I could work till 5. Am I changing my hours for you? I don't know. But these are real conversations with people. So trying to be adaptable, but creating a culture. I've had some employees that have been around a long time, and we try to have the great atmosphere and culture. I think that Christina mentioned. It is hard to compete sometimes with the Starbucks and other larger chains for sure. But I try to do it with, I know. I try to just do it with mainly the best culture that I can, and try to, we have a great customer base, and that keeps people coming back and everything. But, I schedule about 10 interviews at a time, maybe 2 show up. And then of that, let's say they were both, I just able to hire them, maybe 1 shows up on the first day. And then hopefully they make it through the first week. It's a lot of time on my end, but you just got to keep pushing through. And that's kind of the best way I can say it is I just, can't get discouraged, and just kind of, you're not always going to find maybe, the perfect candidate, but I can train anyone to be, what we can do, and try to make the most out of it. And if they make it past the first week, they're usually good. And we keep them for a long period of time. It's just trying to get people in the door to actually show up and then get them through. So, rambling answer your question, but there you go.
Yeah, I had a manager that was a manager at that other coffee place, and they would bring people to interview, and they would offer them whatever they wanted from the menu. And if they didn't take a coffee, they would write 110 on the top of their application. And if the application didn't go well, they'd connect the two ones to make a no. Like, you're halfway out the door by not accepting a coffee because you don't like it. You don't have passion for it, I guess. Or maybe they just weren't thirsty. I'm not sure. So Christina, you have such a unique concept. I mean, like, you have a name for your concept all throughout Central Florida and beyond. Like, people come here. I do travel and tourism, so people mention you on social media just coming here. So how do you guys make such a name for yourself, and how do you leverage that to compete and stay as busy as you guys do?
I think time is a factor. When we first opened, when we needed marketing, you didn't have the money for it. Now that we have the money for it, we don't need it, and that's just how that works. But I think that it's storytelling and providing something unique. So anytime you go to Hollerbach, it's something different. Like, even though we haven't had Das Boot for 2 years because of the pandemic, but you're having Das Boot, you're having this giant pretzel, you saw this old lady doing the chicken dance. We have all these, storytelling moments, so we get really great natural word of mouth and a way for people to connect with each other. And I think, like, pushing that storytelling or that guest experience is the edge that family-owned businesses have on corporate, because consistency is so important, and that's why the product chain is so irritating, because consistency is what creates word of mouth. If you can't guarantee that they're going to be open when they said they're going to be open, that they're going to have that thing that you recommend, then you're not going to tell people about it. So consistency is so key in getting that storytelling out there. But I think that, corporate, they have so many restrictions because they're maintaining that consistency among different branches. And you guys have that experience too with multiples, that if you don't have that consistency, you get destroyed. So as an individual, you do have a little bit more flexibility to interact with your guest in that moment on your own terms with your staff that a corporate maybe cannot, because they want to have that script. They want to make sure it's the same at every place. And also, when you talk about pay scale, and I'm sure FRLA knows this, Disney and Universal, they're struggling like crazy to be competitive right now in pay, because you think about how difficult it is to adjust a pay scale for your own staff. Imagine doing that for tens of thousands of people. So the Disney in tourism is really struggling to be competitive right now and make those adjustments on such a wide scale. And because of that, not having consistency, not being able to give guest experience. So right now is actually a prime time for us to go, hey, they may be struggling, but you can come over here. I got you right now. I'm going to steal this employee because I'm able to adjust my pay scale faster than Disney right now, and I can provide this really cool experience that you can't get at a theme park. So it's an opportunity for me to compete with the big boys, in my opinion, because we can be more flexible because we have a smaller scale. But I always say culture and storytelling. And again, if your employees are having a good time, your guests feel that. I had somebody talk to me like, oh, tell your manager English Dave I said hi. He made a guest experience that, oh, there you are, that you remember that and connect with that person. So empowering your staff to feel like they can take care of people, that they have the ability to provide those experiences, is what I spend most of my time doing, is giving staff those skills and that empowerment than anything else.
Patrice, how does something fishy stand out?
Well, we don't really look at kind of the big boys or the corporate restaurants as competition, because, we are local in our neighborhood. We don't have the reach. What we do is we look at what they do and we try to learn from them, but we also try to learn to not to do certain things that they do. And that allows us to pivot. That has allowed us to, grow and make changes, and we can adjust our menus really quickly. We can, as Christina just said, we can pay someone a competitive wage, and we can give them the hours that they're looking for. You can go work at some of the bigger guys' locations, but they may not give you 30 hours a week. They may not even give you 20 hours a week. We can say, we're going to give you 40 hours a week. Here's your schedule, and we won't change it. And so we don't necessarily have to, have that competition. We just learn from what they do well and what they don't do well, and then we make the adjustment.
Awesome. So, Keri, it's sad to see the restaurants closing, but it's also sad. It's also exciting to see new concepts starting and things like that. Is it good for the industry? Is there some new things happening? How's the industry evolving and changing, and what's positive coming from it for the consumer?
Yeah, I think one of the things that restaurants, I think I mentioned this before, what they've pivoted to do is there's a greater ability to serve people not in the restaurant, the to-go and the carry-out, and it's better food. You can get good food now, carry-out and to-go, and people are still, even though people are out and socializing again, that's still, I have a next-door neighbor, I don't think he's eaten at a restaurant in 2 years, but he sure gets deliveries 5 times a week. That's a whole other situation. Some of it is alcohol to go. But I think, again, you're welcome. I think what is good for the industry is we have learned to pivot. I think for a while, restaurants, and especially I'm going to call out the big boys. I'm going to get fired for this one. And I'll come to work for you at Hollerbach. What the big boys haven't been able to do as easily, I think, is pivot in general. It takes, a committee to make any changes happen at a big corporation. But I think what the restaurants are learning to do is be more flexible with their menu, be more flexible with the offerings, be more flexible with their customers, and kind of tell the story a little bit differently. One of the things that FRLA did was, sadly, one of the things that we pivoted to do was create a whole marketing campaign called, it's around teaching customers how to be nice to employees at restaurants, because that's kind of been a thing. I think we've seen customers, while they're okay paying the higher dollar amount for the menu items, they're a little bit less patient than they were a year and a half ago. I think everybody's over it now, and they just want everything back to normal. And so, sadly, I think one of our workforce issues is people just aren't being nice to our employees. But we have had to pivot with the workforce issues specifically, too. And it's that whole, when I was a kid, I was excited to get a job. Now it's like, what can you do for me as my employer to keep me, invested in your industry? So workforce, I think, is a big one where we're all learning to adjust and accommodate weird, I don't even know what Spotify is, but maybe we should be offering that. But things like that, we have had to learn to say, okay, these are the benefits that matter. Here's the benefits that don't matter anymore to my generation, the things that we thought were important. So new restaurant concepts, to that point, are opening. I think there's some really cool creative stuff going on in the restaurant world. I think people are starting to put more entertainment into their restaurants. You've seen so many more bars that are offering food that they didn't used to. Something Fishy now offers a lot more bar than they used to. I'm kidding. I'm just picking on Patrice. Oh,
we do. We have a bar. Yeah. We have beer and wine, sangria, and mimosas.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So I just think, overall, I think the industry has had to learn to pivot. Same with hotels. I know this isn't a hotel conversation, but you'll find that hotels are starting to build spaces that are bigger and more airy, and the social aspect of hotels has changed, where they're bigger outdoor spaces, bigger open areas. There's no more check-in desk at a lot of these boutique hotels. You walk in, you check in on your app, and you move on. You don't even have to talk to a front desk person, and that's because they've had to pivot to understand that we can't keep employees here, so we're going to have to figure out a way to work without employees. We're also seeing, actually, a lot in South Florida, robot waiters and busboys. Technology is an up-and-coming thing for this industry. You've seen for years at McDonald's, there's a kiosk now in the lobby. You don't have to talk to an employee. We have some bartenders in New York that are now robotic. They will literally, they make the drink, they mix it, it gets passed out to you. So it's like, wow, if we, this is how we have to pivot around the workforce issue, then that's what we have to do. So you're going to see a lot more technology involved as well.
Fun.
I just want to add to that really quickly.
Please.
We have a robot in our restaurant, and I like to tell people, our robot does not have thumbs, so it's not taking anyone's job. But something that we also have in our restaurant that is not publicly known is that we are a ghost kitchen. So we do provide 2 additional lines of food that is online only. People can't come into our restaurant and request it. It's only online. It is a DeWade Wade burger and UD wings. So during that quiet time in the middle of the day where I have my chef standing around and I have a server standing around, we have a very, very robust to-go business, and it is really growing. And so I have the kitchen in my Altamont location in the capacity to have that. My smaller location could not participate, but my Altamont location, we are a full-fledged ghost kitchen.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm just going to add that too, that a lot of ghost kitchens have popped up over the last 2 years. That's a really big industry right now.
Because I heard someone say, could you just define for everyone what a ghost kitchen is?
Yeah, it's not as scary as it sounds.
It actually is. We provide, as I said, 2 products, a burger and chicken wings with a celebrity name, like Dwayne Wade's burgers and UD wings. And we don't have to do any promotion for it. It's through all online, so it's through DoorDash and Uber, and they do all the marketing. So these individuals, they have a very large following, and they just say, hey, here's my burger, they promote it, they do everything. So sometimes the driver can't even find us because they're like, we're coming to something fishy. They know us for that, but now they know that they can come into our restaurant and they're picking up for those items. So it's a mini franchise. So we actually have a mini franchise inside of our restaurant. We have to carry their product line. But that's okay because what we did is we now use those same products in the restaurant for other items. And it's great. It really has added additional money to our bottom line.
That's awesome. Chris, we only have a couple of minutes left. Christina, Stephen, we talked about exciting with the ghost kitchen and things like that. Do you have anything else that you would like to plug or anything new happening that you want to excite our audience with?
I think one of the things that you touched on too about customers, when you're out in the world, be kind and patient with hospitality because we are struggling, and it's so exciting to see the demand is there and people's willingness to pay more and know that it's not us raising prices, it's just what's happening in the world. But be kind to hospitality workers. And then also, give me your children. If they're 16 to like 20, that's a sweet spot for me. My own generation, I can't speak too kindly about, but that 16 to 20, I'll get them while they're young, and we'll train them up good. And also support hospitality endeavors that you hear about in your community. Like Seminole County Virtual Public School has a hospitality program. There's programs at, I think Brantley has a really cool culinary team. So, if you really love these experiences that you get to do when you're off, then you guys need to support this industry when you're not enjoying those experiences. Because, this whole, especially for my generation, this whole push of college or bust did negatively affect hospitality because that's not the same path for everybody. It's not always the thing that fits everyone. So when you getting out of high school and you go, hey, maybe I can't afford college, or maybe this isn't the right path for me, it's not an entry-level job, or let's look down upon the service industry. We are skilled workers. It is difficult to be a server. It is difficult to be a line cook. So respect that industry and encourage people to feel loved and valued in what they chose to do, and not like they had to do this instead of something else. So respect the industry because you're enjoying it as a guest, so let us enjoy it as a career.
Yeah, well said.
Got on my soapbox.
Yeah, I think you touched on that great. So I'm just going to pivot on that. We've tried to accommodate different things. So, we are now closed at nights, largely because we rent out our space now. Saturday night, we have a baby shower that's running all night long. Yep, Suze. So thank you very much. We've done bridal showers, we've done whole weddings, we've done open mic nights. We have a church running it out on Sunday that's having a whole event, teen game night. So pretty much any event that you could possibly think of that you need event space, that's what we do on the weekends and at nights now. And we actually have trivia night coming up on March 16th. If you're into Marvel at all or your kids are into Marvel, come on by at 6:30 on March 16th. It's a Wednesday night. I know it's spring break for a lot of kids, but something to do. So just trying to get creative and have some fun and have a good kind of entertainment. And we will staff up any type of private event too and everything too that you need. So, but yeah, that's it for us.
Everyone go out to eat. and after you go there, take pictures and then post and Yelp review and Google places and yada, 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 and promote. They need brand ambassadors to be brand advocates for them. So thank you very much for the panel. Tell stories. All right. Thank you very much to the panel.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the Seminole County Chamber, please visit seminolebusiness.org or check us out on all social media at the Seminole Chamber.